Part 1, The Night of the Coin. The rain over the A82 came in slanted sheets, hissing against metal and stone. Sergeant Callum Reid drove with both hands tied on the wheel, wipers scraping at the fog that refused to clear. It was nearly 11:30 p.m., and the Highland Road had emptied hours ago, just his patrol truck, the dull hum of the radio, and the lake somewhere in the darkness to his right. The sign appeared through the mist like an apparition: Blackwater Crossing Rest Area, mile 42. He flicked his signal light out of habit. The lot was deserted, no tourist cars, no truckers sleeping behind curtains. Just one low building, a brick restroom block crouched beneath a flickering sodium lamp. Callum killed the engine and stepped out. Cold hit him hard, the air smelled of peat and iron. The fog on the moor seemed alive, breathing around the edges of his flashlight beam. He'd stopped here before. Never liked it. The stories went back decades: missing travelers, a hiker found burned in his tent, a stray dog seen standing upright at night. He told himself it was nonsense, the kind that filled long nights with cheap fear. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The restroom's fluorescent tube buzzed above a cracked mirror. 4 stalls lined the far wall, doors painted in different shades of decay. His boots echoed against the tiles. Somewhere behind the last stall, water dripped steadily. Then he noticed the graffiti. Every stall door bore a number scratched into the paint: 1, 2, 3, 4, and beneath each, someone had drawn a small circle enclosing a year. 1, 1952. 2, 1972. 3, 1992. 4, 2012. Callum exhaled, forcing a laugh. Some prank, maybe. He turned to leave, but his radio cracked with static, a single word breaking through: stop. He froze. A coin rolled from beneath the first stall. It struck his boot, spinning until it lay flat. The metal glowed faintly red in the beam of his flashlight. He bent down. The surface was smooth and hot to the touch. 1 penny. 1952. That was when the stall door creaked open. A smell hit him: iron and rot. Inside, the light seemed different, warmer, older. The tiles were cleaner, the mirror unbroken. On the floor lay a nurse's handbag, the kind from the mid-century, its contents spilled: gauze, scissors, a blood-stained handkerchief. And the woman. She sat against the far wall, uniform torn, throat cut from ear to ear. Dried blood had turned black under her chin. Yet her eyes were open. Watching him. Callum stumbled backward, breath sharp. The mirror over the sink flashed once, reflecting not him, but another man standing behind her, face hidden by shadow, a long knife in hand. Then the light snapped off. Darkness swallowed everything. When he burst through the restroom door into the night, he fell to his knees, gasping, hands shaking. The rain was gone. The air smelled of coal smoke instead of diesel. The lamp outside wasn't flickering anymore, it was a glass lantern, burning steady yellow. He stood. The parking lot was filled with old cars, boxy shapes from another era. A bus idled in the distance, painted with Glasgow, Fort William 1952. What the hell? A shout from behind: police! Stay back! A uniformed constable, one of them, from 1950s Scotland, he ran toward him, revolver drawn. Callum raised his badge instinctively, but the man fired anyway. The bullet whined past his shoulder, shattering the lantern. Everything exploded into darkness again. He woke slumped against the patrol truck, rain hammering the roof. The digital clock on the dash blinked 11:46 p.m. His hands were wet, not from rain, but blood. A penny stuck to his palm, its date glimmering through the smear: 1952. Dispatch, this is Reid, something's wrong at mile 42, static hissed back, then a deep growl, not mechanical but animal. The fog outside the windshield thickened until it turned black. Something moved within it, massive, four-legged, pacing. The radio screeched and died. He reached for the ignition. The engine refused to turn. The black shape approached. Two eyes, ember red, hung suspended in the mist like coals in a furnace. Breath stained against the glass. For a moment he thought he saw fur, jaws, horns, then it was gone, leaving frost spiderwebbing across the window. Callum stumbled out of the car, flashlight trembling. The rest area was silent again, only the faint drip of water from the gutter. But now every stall door in the restroom stood open. For dark rectangles. For centuries of air bleeding together. He stepped to the second door, 1972 carved deep. The smell inside was sweet and chemical. Posters of psychedelic concerts peeled on tiled walls. A radio somewhere played muffled folk music. A girl hung from the ceiling by a belt, eyes glassy. A peace sign pendant swung gently at her throat. Callum shouted, cutting her down, but when her body hit the floor, she gasped, alive for a split second, clutching at his wrist. Her fingers were freezing cold. She whispered something, 4 words that made no sense. The hound feeds soon. Then her body turned to ash in his arms. He stumbled backward through the door, choking. The ash clung to his jacket like soot. Outside again, the fog roared like surf. He dropped the flashlight. Its beam landed on the concrete and revealed boot prints, his own, but overlapping in different directions, some leading to 1952, others toward the farthest door, 2012. He realized the blood on the ground wasn't rainwater, it pulsed faintly, seeping toward the building, as if the soil itself were breathing. He ran to the truck, slammed the door, and forced the engine alive. The headlights caught something in the mirror, movement within the restroom, 4 doors swinging rhythmically in unison, faster and faster. On each swing, a different world flashed through. A man in a 1970s uniform screaming. A burning woman crawling toward the sink. A man in a trench coat holding a glowing rune. A black dog standing upright, its mouth dripping light instead of saliva. Then everything stopped. The doors closed together with a sound like a heartbeat. The radio flicked on by itself. A woman's voice, steady, calm, Scottish accent. Sergeant Reid. If you can hear me, you've opened it. Who is this? Inspector Fiona Kerr. Year 1972. You're inside the loop now. Static swallowed her words. He sat motionless, breath fogging the window, pulse hammering. The coin on the dashboard glowed red, brighter, until it burned a small circle into the vinyl. He grabbed his lighter, poured the emergency fuel can across the restroom steps, and struck the flame. The fire took instantly, orange reflected in the fog like sunrise. The doors shrieked, a real wooden something deeper, older, crying out. The roof blew open. A column of black smoke rose, twisting into a spiral that stretched far above the trees. For a heartbeat, he saw shapes moving in the blaze, faces from every decade, turning toward him in agony and gratitude. Then the flames collapsed inward, leaving only the stone foundation and a single sign swaying in the heat. Devil's Bend, mile 46. The rest area was gone. In its place stood a new one, untouched, as if it had always been there. Callum stumbled backward, coughing, realizing the highway sign now read. Rest area ahead, mile 46, Devil's Bend. He looked at his watch. Still 11:47 p.m. Time hadn't moved at all. He climbed into the truck and drove north. The road curved along the loch, smooth and black beneath his headlights. Behind him, the fog rolled after the tail lights like smoke from a dying fire. On the seat beside him lay the 1952 penny, cool now, perfectly clean. When he glanced up, he caught something in the rearview mirror, 4 doors standing alone in the dark, faintly glowing red. And above them, the shadow of a dog watching from the ridge, waiting for the next 20 years to pass. Part 2, The Loop and the Black Hound. The fog on the A82 never let up. Callum Reid drove with his hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles had gone white. Devil's Bend stretched before him, a narrow outcropping of road lined with jagged rock and pine, the loch to his right a sheet of ink reflecting nothing but the weak glow of headlights. He didn't remember turning the truck around, but here he was again, back at the threshold of impossible doors. He parked, heart hammering, and glanced at the coin. The 1952 penny lay flat on the seat, innocuous, cool, ordinary. He had learned better than to trust ordinary. The first door loomed ahead, glowing faintly red through the mist. But it wasn't the same as last time. Now it pulsed with anticipation, like a heartbeat beneath the fog. Callum's instinct screamed, "Do not enter alone." Yet he knew, this was the only way to see the loop through. A shadow shifted in the mist behind the building. "Sergeant Reid?" He spun. A figure stepped forward, a woman in a dark blue 1970s police uniform, hands folded at her waist, calm but tense. Her eyes were sharp, her face familiar in some impossible way. "Inspector Fiona Kerr," she said, voice steady, carrying authority despite the years she had lost. "I've been trapped here since 1972. You're not supposed to be able to see me yet." Callum swallowed hard. "Trapped? You mean, like me?" She nodded, eyes flicking to the first door. "The doors, they are connected to him. Angus Macrae. He feeds time to the Black Hound. Every 20 years, someone has to die for him to survive. Every 20 years, the loop starts again. And now, you are in it." Callum's pulse raced. "The Hound. Not a dog you can kill with bullets," Fiona said. "It is older than any of us, tied to Angus. And Angus, he is waiting. Watching." A low growl rolled through the mist. The sound vibrated through the asphalt beneath their feet. It was massive, too massive for any normal animal. Red eyes glimmered faintly through the fog, reflecting off the wet tarmac like coals from a forge. Callum's fingers tightened on his revolver. He felt a weight in his chest, a pressure not just from fear, but from the unnatural gravity of the loop itself. The doors began to pulse in unison, and from each doorway came faint glimpses of the past. Door 1, 1952. A nurse huddled in terror, clutching a blood-soaked handkerchief. Door 2, 1972. A hippie girl's body hung limply from the ceiling, eyes wide, reaching for air. Door 3, 1992. A truck driver fell sideways, shotgun in hand, blood blooming against the tiles. Door 4, 2012. Flames licked a tourist's legs, charred skin catching light from the fiery corridor beyond. Callum could feel their cries, not audible but pressing against his mind, searing like static electricity. The loop wanted him to hesitate, to falter. "Do you see it?" Fiona asked. Her voice trembled just slightly. "It's the coin. Every death, every 20 years, the coin burns the timeline, feeding the Black Hound." He looked down. The penny glowed red again, like a living ember, hotter than any metal should ever be. They started with the first door. Fiona drew a small rune stone from her pocket, its surface etched with ancient markings. "This may help stabilize the loop," she said. "But we'll have to fight him, and the Hound." Callum exhaled sharply. "And if we fail? Then the loop will reset, and you will die too. Eventually." Together they stepped through door 1. The restroom from 1952 lay before them, tile floor polished, mirrors spotless. The nurse was still there, crouched, eyes wide with terror, the coin glowing red beside her. Callum approached slowly. She looked at him, lips moving, words he couldn't hear. He reached for the coin, and heat leapt from it into his palm, burning the skin. He pulled back instinctively, but Fiona's hand steadied his. "Don't hesitate," she whispered. "The Hound is near." The air rippled. Shadows lengthened unnaturally. The growl came again, vibrating the walls. Red eyes flashed behind the stall, massive and hulking, dripping with unnatural light. The nurse's body convulsed, but Callum pressed forward, grasped her wrist, and yanked her free. She gasped as if she had taken her first breath in decades. Then the floor beneath them shuddered. The Black Hound emerged through the mist, enormous, 3 meters tall, its fur blacker than the night, eyes glowing, more open in an unholy grin. It lunged, massive paws striking the tiles, leaving scorched marks as it moved. Callum fired. His revolver cracked through the air. Bullets tore through the fog, but the creature seemed to absorb sound and motion, undeterred. Fiona shouted, "Move! Now!" They escaped through the second door, 1972. The hippie girl's body swung violently from the ceiling. Callum grabbed her, steadying her limp frame. She shivered, eyes wide. The coin rolled at her feet, glowing hotter, almost alive. The hound followed. Shadows twisted, filling the doorway, swallowing the light. Callum raised his gun again, firing into the thick black mist. Fiona hurled a small rune against the wall. It burst in a blue flash, knocking the creature back. "Each death feeds it," Fiona said urgently. "Every soul burned, every timeline cracked, he grows stronger. Angus has trapped it here for 80 years. Callum's stomach churned. "So, we have to survive until 2012, she said grimly. "That's when we can reverse it." Over the next 2 decades, measured in this distorted loop, Callum and Fiona became hunters of time itself. Each iteration revealed more about Angus Macrae. A man cursed in 1932, forced to feed the Black Hound through ritual murders every 20 years. A man whose presence twisted reality around him, making the doors flicker with firelight, shadow, and blood. A man who had learned to manipulate fear itself, drawing energy from their terror. Callum honed his skills: firearms, improvised explosives, knowledge of runes, and old Highland rituals. His wife, Morphin, eventually joined him in later cycles, learning to shoot, to fight, to act without hesitation. The rest areas, once mundane stops along the loch, became battlefields. Each doorway opened like a wound across time. Every door freed a victim, but each escape made the hound grow more volatile. They marked the floors with chalk and runes, built wards, set traps, but Angus always slipped through, waiting. Always watching. Callum began to notice the effect of the loop on himself. Each time he pulled a victim free, his hands burned. The coin's heat transferred into his veins, leaving him shaking and drained. Fiona warned him, "It's not just the hound, it's the loop imprinting itself on your life. The timeline remembers you." At night, he dreamed of the hound, 3 meters of shadow, eyes burning, teeth glinting, moving like fog across the Highland moor. The growl followed him, even outside the rest areas, even in sleep. He began to anticipate its moves, seeing it in reflections, in the dark corners of any building, waiting to strike at the next door. Yet there was one consistency: the coin, always glowing 1952, a tether to everything. Every time he touched it, he felt the weight of centuries, the souls Angus had stolen, the lives he had yet to save. By 2012, Callum had mapped every rest area along the A82 with precision. Devil's Bend became the center of the plan. Fiona, older but unbowed, carried the last rune stone, a tool that could reverse the loop, but only at the precise moment when all doors aligned. The hound had grown clever, anticipating their moves. It struck from fog, attacked reflections, twisted walls, and doorways like water. Callum and Morphin had learned to move silently, to rely on instinct and timing. They knew that hesitation meant death. Each time a door opened, heat and blood poured through like fire. Each time they saved a life, Angus' shadow flinched but waited, patient. The loop had become a dance, an intricate, terrifying rhythm, set by a man older than time itself, guided by the Black Hound's hunger. And Callum knew, as he traced the edges of Devil's Bend, that the final confrontation would require more than bullets or fire. It would demand sacrifice, cunning, and precise timing. Only then could the cycle be broken, and Angus Macrae finally undone. Part 3, Reversal and the Last Penny. The fog was heavier than ever on the 15th of October 2012. Devil's Bend lay shrouded in a blanket of mist so dense it swallowed headlights like smoke. Callum Reid gripped the wheel, his knuckles white, breath clouding inside the truck. Morphin sat beside him, her fingers clenched around a shotgun, eyes wide but steady. The coin, glowing faintly red even now, rested on the dashboard, a silent reminder of decades of death and terror. Fiona Kerr stepped out of the fog, runestone in hand, eyes narrowed. Time had aged her, but not softened her resolve. She held the carved rock tightly, its etched surface glimmering with an icy blue light. "This is it," she said. "If we do this wrong, the loop will reset. All the victims, all the lives, gone. And Angus, he'll survive." Callum nodded. "I know. Let's finish it." The doors waited, for rectangular shadows against the mist, pulsing with light that shifted from red to green to blue in unnatural rhythm. The first, the 1952 door, swung open as if breathing. Behind it, the nurse crouched, alive for the first time in 60 years. The other doors followed, the hippie girl, the truck driver, the tourist, all frozen in the instant of their deaths, waiting. The Black Hound growled from the ridge above, massive form coiling through the fog, eyes glowing embers, jaws snapping. It had sensed the shift in the timeline, the alignment of the rune and the courage of those standing against it. Callum stepped out of the truck, shotgun raised. Morphin followed, holding a flare, light streaking the fog like a blade. Fiona began chanting in the old tongue, hands drawing intricate patterns in the air. The stone floated from her palm, glowing brighter with each syllable. The doors shivered. Flames licked the edges of the 1952 doorway, though no wind stirred. A smell of iron and ozone filled the air. The nurse, now fully conscious, clutched the coin to her chest. Callum moved toward her, signaling Morphin to cover him. The Black Hound charged. Fog surged ahead of its movement like rolling waves, red eyes cutting through every corner of reality. Callum fired, the pellets ripping through mist and shadow. The hound yelped, not in pain, but in fury, and recoiled slightly from the combined light of the flare and Fiona's rune. Fiona stepped between Callum and the doors, chanting louder, voice almost tearing the mist apart. Sparks shot from the rune stone, striking each door in turn. The doors trembled violently, light spilling outward, beams stretching into the sky. Shadows of Angus Macrae appeared within the mist, twisted and malformed, a silhouette of centuries, clutching a twisted scepter-like cane glowing with dark energy. "Callum! Morphin!" Fiona shouted. "Now, each of you push them open." They rushed, hands gripping edges of each door. Time seemed to slow. The light grew almost unbearable, pulsating with a rhythm that made the ground quake beneath them. Callum felt the coin sear against his palm, a burn that traveled through his veins, connecting him to every life it had claimed. With a final, collective heave, the doors swung fully open. A surge of blue light erupted, engulfing the rest area in brilliance so intense it was like standing inside the sun. The screams of decades echoed, then were replaced by silence. The Black Hound reeled, trapped in the surge of light. Its massive form twisted, trying to escape the energy that now linked every door and every victim together. Angus screamed, a sound that scraped across the mind rather than the ears, his shadow flickering as the timeline rejected him. Callum saw the faces of the victims through the light, their terror fading, replaced by confusion, then relief. They were alive, whole, standing again in the real world. The nurse looked at him with gratitude that burned hotter than any flame. The hippie girl blinked, disoriented, holding her throat as if sensing life for the first time in 40 years. The hound lunged one last time toward the light, jaws snapping at the source. Callum's hands burned holding the coin steady. Fiona chanted, voice raw, as the stone hovered above her palm. Morphin's flare illuminated the beast's eyes, and for a heartbeat, everything froze, the world suspended between death and release. Then the hound shrieked, a sound like breaking mountains, and vanished. Not exploded, not killed, but unmade, untethered from the timeline. Angus was left, a human form again, old and frail, shackled to the energy of the loop. Fiona's rune glowed violently and then shattered with a blue flash. Callum's vision cleared. The doors were gone, replaced by normal, unassuming restroom blocks. Devil's Bend had returned to its mundane form. The coin lay in the dirt, dull and lifeless. The fog thinned, revealing the Highland stars for the first time in decades. "Is it over?" Morphin whispered. Fiona collapsed onto the ground, drained, chest heaving. "It's over. But it required everything we had. The loop, broken. Angus, gone. The Hound, dissolved. Callum approached the spot where Angus had stood. The old man, or the ghost of a man, was now reduced to ashes, scattered into the wind. The Highland air carried the faint scent of burned peat and iron. One by one, the victims stepped forward, alive and breathing, confusion and relief etched across their faces. The nurse clasped her hands together, tears streaming. The hippie girl blinked in disbelief. Even the tourist from 2012 looked around, dazed but unharmed. Callum exhaled, leaning against the truck, realizing the weight of what had passed. "We did it," he said, almost to himself. "We actually did it." Fiona shook her head. "It doesn't end with remembering. Time, it forgets. We forget so that history can heal." Over the following months, life returned to normal, or as close to normal as anyone could after witnessing decades of horror in a single night. Callum, Morphin, and Fiona all resumed ordinary lives. The coin lost its glow, tucked away in a drawer, a relic of a nightmare that no one would fully remember. The victims rebuilt their lives, grateful for a second chance. Eilid Grant, the nurse from 1952, went on to become a doctor. The hippie girl became a teacher. The truck driver's family learned he had never truly died. Yet every the 15th of October, Callum found himself driving along the A82 toward Devil's Bend. He didn't know why. The loop's imprint lingered, a shadow in the mind, a pull from some place beyond memory. He parked briefly at the rest area, glanced at the doors that no longer existed, and felt the faintest prickle on his skin, as if red eyes were watching from the ridge, waiting to see if he would open the doors again. Some nights, he swore he heard the distant bark of a massive dog, echoing through the lochside fog. Not real, not entirely, but the memory was etched into the highlands themselves.